Okay, so to join me in this exploration and discussion, 3 inspiring guests. Claudix Vanesix. Hi, Claudix.
Oli.
You are a performance and XR artist from Peru, but you're currently living in France, not in Paris, but in Marseille. Your award-winning work, featured in galleries and festivals around the world, offers a powerful critique of sexism and racism in digital social life, and reflects on their impact on the physical world. We were lucky enough to get a glimpse of your work last night, and I really want to thank you for shaking us up. It was amazing, really loved it. So thanks again. Second guest is Martin Langat. Hello, Martin.
Hello.
Hello. You are a freelance graphic designer and VR animator from Nairobi, Kenya. The aesthetics of your work are refreshing, I must say, from what we're used to seeing in VR. What makes your creations so original is that they are deeply rooted in Kenyan culture, in its visual traditions, designs, and representations. So we're going to have a look at this too. And last but not least, Lorna Okeng. Nice to meet you, Lorna.
Hi.
You are the creative director of Keepers XR Studio, an immersive media company in Uganda. Your collaborations with museums focus on cultural heritage, and you constantly work to amplify new narratives and emerging voices within the XR space. As for me, I make immersive radio documentaries, sound walks, and installations. For the last 15 years, I've been working mainly on the theme of international migrations and borders, related, of course, with questions like identity, territory, and spaces we inhabit, or try to inhabit. The question we are addressing today, both individual and collective identities, is vast, complex, and deeply sensitive. So to begin, I'd like each of us to share what identity means for us, means to us. And to open the conversation, I would say that for me, as you must know that you can see that I'm a mixed-race woman. I'm a descendant of slaves and probably also of slave owners. I'm the daughter of a white woman and the mother of a black boy. So, and since I have short hair, I am often mistaken for a lesbian, and it's true, I could have been. So I'm used to saying that I live in the in-between. And I'm never fully from here and never fully from elsewhere. And I'm all of this, but also so many other things too. My last name means Jewish in French, but I see myself as a pagan. When I was a kid, people used to call me the Chinese girl, but I've always felt close to native peoples from the Americas. I'm a yogi, but I also love singing Rage Against the Machine. So, see, I'm really wondering who I am. Who can I be? My identity cannot be reduced to my ethnic or geographical origins, no matter what people who love to label others might think. To me, identity can only be expressed in the singular. It's unique. It's shaped by our heritage, our experiences, our tastes, our choices. And yet, identity is also necessarily plural. Even if we look alike or share a community, each of us carries multiple identities. That's why today I'm choosing not to speak about identity in the abstract as a fixed or homogeneous entity, nor of our identity, which is even worse. But I'd like us to talk about, I will speak about my identities and invite you all to speak of our identities, understood as your individual selves. In my work, I try to tap into what's universal, what connects us as human beings, rather than what separates or distinguishes us. That's probably the reason why I work on borders, to show that there can be separation lines and connecting lines, hyphens too. So that's my POV. And I'm wondering what's yours. It's your turn now. I'd like to invite each of you to share your point of view on identity, to know more about your relationship with your plural selves, and how new technologies have changed in the way you see your present yourselves. So maybe, Claudix, would you like to start?
Yes, I will try to be super short because I just had a huge catharsis while you were speaking. Wow.
Really?
Yeah, really. Okay, so I will start from the last thing that you said, how technology changed the way I understand identity. Not just identity as a person, but identity as a species, identity as an event. Like, what the hell is happening? We exist. This happened to me when I started working with VR. The fact that, like, I don't want to make it something spill, but we all work in VR, so we know that we do this. There is this mathematical laws of physics that makes things happen for us, and we all accept it. We all accept it. It's not like if I throw this, I let it go, it's gonna go up. That would contradict our common identity of realness. So for me, VR distracted my perception of realness so much that I got into very big loopholes about what is real and what is not. Am I real? Are you real? So this is called technological solipsism. There's a lot of people right now within the simulation theorists, which are many different. A lot of people think that we might be living in a video game because video games plus AI, XR is the most advanced level of technology that we have reached right now. But I would like to remind us all that when our best technologies were textiles, we saw ourselves as textiles. So I think it's very important how technology super shapes how we perceive ourselves as individuals and as community. We tend to mirror whatever we see ourselves in there. It's like, AI, that's me, you see? It really configures everything. So for me, identity now is a super fluid thing. Like, I remember when I was 4 years old and everything that existed was mom, dad, sister that I have fights with, brother that I have fights with, you know, and we love each other, blah, blah. And that was the whole world. And my identity was being the child, the youngest child of this family. And then there was my neighborhood. And this was my identity, the neighborhood. And then there was the country. I learned I lived in a country. And then I went out of the country. I learned I was in a continent. And then when I went out of the continent, I learned that I was in a world. And that there are so many parts of the world that I am not informed of because of the system of belief that I was raised into. For example, this is, and I'm going to finish with this, this is one thing that I love to say in my performance or every time I have a moment to speak. We are not in the year 2025. We are in the year 2025. If you think that we should measure time according to the birth of this Messiah called Jesus Christ. But I think at this point in my life, I give myself the opportunity to think this is not the unity of measure of time for me. And I keep saying this out loud because maybe some other people will resonate, yeah, me too, I don't want that. And we start talking and eventually find our way out of this time measurement that influences us. If you think you were born like me, I was born in the year 1996, and make that my identity. It's completely erasing the story of everyone that was behind. So many millenary stories that are super important and that are more relevant for my identity as a Quechua mestizo person than the birth of Jesus Christ. So I might as well, as many other countries in the world do, choose a different time frame to see yourself in context. So yeah, technology.
Thank you, Claudix. Same question to Martin.
When you grow up, you see, first you start to mimic from people who are close to you, like parents and your siblings. Then as you grow into the world, you start to see this pattern. And when coming from an African context, we like to compare each other. Like you are told your cousin is doing this, why aren't you getting better at your grades and things like that. So for me, whenever I do my work, I like to look at the relationship between the social and economical relations when it comes to how people identify in this new age of world, and which all comes to like money and things like that. So whenever I get into virtual reality, it takes me back to my childhood, whereby I used to play with mud and like wire sculptures. So that's how it feels whenever I create in virtual reality. And as an artist, also to add on what Claudix said, I feel like we have a responsibility to like document what we are, because that's the only way we can teach the future generations, because we are existing. It's crazy. I think everyone goes through different experiences, and we have the space to share it with the world. And yeah, I'm glad I'm here.
Thank you for being here. And what do you want to share in particular? What do you want to teach to people through your work?
Okay, so my work was under the XR development market. I did, it's a short mini series, so the prototype is done. It's the first episode, and it delves into the loneliness epidemic, because we've lost touch with like the baby boomers. So now we are like scattering around in the internet, like trying to find something you can relate to in it, and also delving into work-life balance and how things have become really skewed. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Martin. Lorna, some question. What's your relationship with the idea of an identity or identities? And does XR and new technologies in particular help you to express them differently or not?
Fantastic question. I think when I heard the question, and I was just like, where should my mind, what should be my point of reference? But then when I think about identity, it takes me, I think identity is not something I kind of own or hold. It's what I live by. And when I thought, what do I live by? There is a particular, it's not a proverb, it's a quote, I think by Albert Einstein. And he said, every day I remind myself that my existence is a result of the blood, sweat, and tears of the men and women who came before us. And therefore, I must exert myself in equal measure to contribute to what I am already enjoying, and what I will continue to enjoy. And that really particularly resonates with me because we all know the philosophy of Ubuntu, you know, I am because we are. I am not free until all of us are free. There is no me without you, right? We are a collective. And so for me, grounded by those ideologies of our forefathers, today I will say I am my ancestors' wildest dreams. Because as a woman, there's never been a better time to be alive as a woman. There's never been a better time to be alive as a Black woman. There has never been a more exciting time, to be frank, to participate on global platforms such as this as now. So yeah, when you imagine that, you know, 100 years ago, women were asking to vote, and now we can vote. Women were seeking to be included in education for school, and now you can collect as many degrees as you can. So for me, identity, as I said, is really what I live by. But it's also a responsibility. Just going back to the previous, it's saying that because of the people who I'm riding on the shoulders of my ancestors, and therefore the generation that's coming after me has to have it better.
right? So there's that sense of responsibility that I have, that it's not about me anymore, it's about the collective. And I have to do everything that I can to make sure that the children who come after us are what we then consider the beautiful ones. There's a Ghanaian book called The Beautiful Ones Are Not Yet Born, and it was written in the 1960s saying that the children who are going to be born in a world that's beautiful and fantastic were not there yet. And I really think that we have glimpses into the era when we will begin to see the beautiful ones. I think the beautiful ones are already here, and moving forward, the beautiful ones will continue to exist. To the question on what technology does, why I really love immersive tech and XR in particular is that it's the most similar philosophically to African tech. Right?
Really?
Yeah, so the idea of immersion, the idea of the virtual. So African spirituality, the physical and the metaphysical were kind of blurry. It was one of the same, but then you were not necessarily invited into the other, but you knew it was there. So virtual reality, for example, is already telling us that there is this augmented virtual world. You can't touch it, but you can live in it. So for me, when I think about immersive tech and what tech has allowed us to do, it is a bridge that allowed us to connect some of those dots and allow us to experience ourselves and our identities and our stories in the formats in which our ancestors recognized them. So our medium of storytelling is coming close. I think there's a convergence. So the tech for me is a convergence to art, tech, science, spirituality. I call it ancestral intelligence. It can be artificial intelligence. It can also be African intelligence. They are the same.
Wow, beautiful. Maybe I should precise that you earned a master's in inclusive innovation from University of Cape Town, but also a master's degree in philosophy, if I don't mistake.
Yes, it's a master's in philosophy.
It is. And you've been working also 9 years as an engineer for major tech companies, including Google, Vodafone, or Electric South. So I was wondering, with such a background, how do you think XR helps people, meaning artists and users, to explore their personal identities and collective heritage?
Oh, lovely. I love that question because I always say that technology remains a tool. It will always be a tool. It's also a medium that allows us to push the boundaries of creative expression. And I think what we're seeing now more than ever is we're seeing, again, I'll use the language of conversion. We're seeing artists, technologists, scientists kind of collapsing into the same space. What used to be siloed, we're coming back together. So for me, technology simply draws a lot of its inspiration of art. Art always goes ahead of time, and tech just simply tries to catch up. And also art deeply challenges technology. So when we look at the histories of tech, what we're calling the artificial intelligence of today, the virtual worlds of today, these are almost pieces that existed in films, 60, 70 years ago. The Teslas gave us snippets into the future. And the technology just caught up maybe 100 years ago. But the likes of Isaac Asimov, he has done fantastical work just imagining what we would consider sci-fi. We are now seeing it come together as reality. So you'll see that a lot of the tech we see is simply engineering catching up with creative imagination. So the artists are leading and the technologists kind of catch up. But now we are seeing a collapse of the two, that the two groups are now not working in silos, sitting in the same room and really working together. I think that's what's really fantastical. On what artists can do and what that allows them to do, as I said, is this is simply a medium of storytelling, and that it allows us, again, to just push what is possible. Take away the craziness, give them the resources, and let imagination dance. And I think that, to me, is what I've loved the most in all of this. But also going back to what I'd said earlier about the freedom of imagination, is that these tools are mirrors into what, there's this, if you're in the Bible, there's nothing new under the sun. So something just comes back and kind of rearranges itself in a different formats. So what we're really seeing is artists able to tap into creative realms that we have never been able to see, to be able to tell stories and bridge that in formats that we've never been able to see. For the African continent, it's particularly exciting because, there's the stat that says 90% 90% of African artifacts live out of the continent in Western museums and private collections. However, there was also that I think that we didn't document. But it's not that we didn't document, it's just that our formats of documentation were not, tangible. So you wouldn't put them in libraries as books, or you wouldn't put them as artifacts in museums. They were intangible. So an artifact that you saw in a museum had a whole kind of like a buffet of narrative that Escote did, but the formats of storytelling were not mature enough to capture that. So these technologies allow us to kind of like wake up ghosts, not really ghosts, but wake up stories or hidden stories that cannot be captured beautifully in like an artifact, So it just kind of gives life an awakening to hidden formats. So that's what I would say.
Claudix, did you want to react? And I also had a question for you because I was wondering how long have you been practicing performance art before mixing it with XR, and why did you choose to do so? What does it change in your artistic practice?
Just to kind of assimilate what you were sharing also, it made me think about how quantum physics is just now, like white science is just now touching the surface of interdimensionality. When indigenous people have been saying it for centuries, and we've been told we are stupid, and that we are ignorant, and that we imagine things because we use plant technology, fungi technology. We've been communicating with other species for centuries, but things catch up when they are ready to catch up, when massive audiences are ready to hear it. There is right now a huge addiction and exploitation of sacred indigenous plants going on in Los Angeles. They are crazy about it, about ayahuasca, about shrooms, like they are very crazy about it. In New York, I heard that in one weekend there is 80 ayahuasca ceremonies. Not even in Peru there is 80 in 1 month. Because the people who is ready to share this knowledge, because it's intangible knowledge of the people, is passed through generations or through apprenticeship, And it's not you had one ceremony, you get a recipe, you do it, you share it. It is really taking away a lot of the knowledge that is shared, and it's worst, it's taking away the value of the learning that we collectively had. Why? Because if I say I believe deeply that we are all connected in other dimension to a singular place, if I say that, and I can, of course, argue, not in this space, but I can argue why I believe that, it now gets mixed with other people saying that in a much more ignorant, less argumentative way. And it takes away from what we've been saying. So we got expropriated from our own knowledges by sharing them, by being colonized also. So that as a response to what you were saying. And since when I've been doing live performance and when...
why it became a necessity for you to get into new technologies?
I was forced, like most people. I was doing theater.
In your work, I mean.
I was doing theater, and then the pandemic happened, and I lost all my prospect of work. We didn't know when we were able to be again in a space like this without a mask, or we didn't know even when quarantine was gonna finish. And I was in Peru then, and I don't know if you know this, but Peru and Ecuador, we went through months of having a health system so collapsed that people would leave their dead family members outside their houses because we didn't have burial, and we didn't know if dead corpses were contagious. And through all of that, I was looking at my life saying, what did I do? Like, everyone told me not to go for arts because I would starve. And now I am actually looking in my life. The future is not looking bright. Because really, theater without technology in my country and in many other countries have still not recovered from COVID-19. Audiences left, and some audiences never returned. Some of us creators were invited to, to reorganize our system of beliefs and learning new skills, and all of this discourse of tech is empowering. Everything that I do is for documenting who I am being, who me and my people are being, and for challenging that these technologies is the only way that we can think about the future. So I work with a collective in Peru that we are called a Mixer, and we are part of a movement in South America of indigenous futurisms or anti-futurisms that are Amazonian and different type of ethnicities. For example, the most regional futurism that we are developing in Peru is called Andean futurism. The Andes is the chain of the mountains in the South America. So we are, of course, invaded by all of these notions of sci-fi that were already imagined by people decades ago and that are great inspirations for, xenomorphities, H.G. Giga, for example, being one person who today I see H.G. Giga everywhere, but people don't know that they are using these homosexuals' work as reference. They don't know that. But there is a huge European and Asia control over narratives of future, and of course now USA also wants a part in it. But I think we have the right to ask ourselves, are we allowed to exist out of that narrative? Is this really the inevitable future for all of us? And for me, I use technology as a way to get into these kind of spaces where technology is the center of the conversation. And I like to be here and exist and be uncomfortable.
Okay, I was wondering if we should have a look on the kind of performances you are making, but since you were talking about, maybe we're going to wait 5 more minutes because we were talking about COVID, the pandemic, and you said, Martin, before that the VR film you are working on is the idea was born during the pandemic. That's right. And what's the pitch? Is it's about mental illness due to loneliness during that period? What is it about? Can you please tell us more?
Yeah, so my project tries to look at the current state of being human in our society today. And it was looking at how we evolved from the cultures that how our grandparents were then coming to our parents and now our generation, and how we were losing identity as we continued on as a society. Yeah, so we see work-life balance interrupting, like the maternal, help me with that word, connection between the kids and the parents, because you still have to put food on the table. And now that leaves the kids with this online space, and we don't know what they are consuming in that space. And sometimes if you take a chance to talk with like a nephew, they even start to they say things like skibidi toilet, or it's like brain rot.
Yes.
Yeah. So so you find them, they actually don't know who they are. Wow. And now they try to fit into places where they honestly don't belong. Wow. We have like groomers and things like that in the online space.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have an extract. Quentin, please, can you show us this extract of the title of the VR of this VR film is VR experience or VR film?
VR film.
VR film is. Maybe you should tell it. The title. And explain it.
So it's a play on words. It's the Lulu is not the Solulu. So we can't be delusional, saying, we are just going to keep on doing what we are doing and just ignore what's going on in society, because we actually have to deal with the repercussions of what's going on in the world. Yeah, we are all connected. Yeah. There was like a video I had.
Yeah, I'm expecting it to be showcased. Yeah, here it is.
The mass adoption of social media has increased the speed and accessibility of disseminating information, gathering feedback, and engaging with audiences on a global scale. While social media platforms are designed to connect people across vast distances, the curated and often idealized versions of life presented on social media can foster feelings of inadequacy, as individuals compare their own lives to the seemingly perfect lives portrayed by others. As individuals prioritize online interactions over in-person relationships, the quality of social bonds weakens, and the emotional support once derived from genuine human connections diminish. The constant connectivity afforded by social media has also blurred the boundaries between work and personal life. This leads to a 24/7 culture, since work can be done remotely, contributing to stress and burnout.
That's it?
Yeah.
Can we talk about the aesthetics?
Okay.
I've been said that it was deeply rooted in the Kenyan visual tradition. Can you explain this? And I was wondering if it was for you a political choice to choose such an imagery.
So we have like Maasai shukas and things like that, which normally it's quite simplified than this, but also, we're in like, there's this globalization. So I also draw inspiration from guys like Gendi, who did Samurai Jack, because we like grew up watching Cartoon Network.
Okay.
Adding on to like TV is like becoming a dead thing, because nowadays people don't even watch TV. So it's mostly, I take the aesthetics from the graffiti that is drawn on our public system transport. They're called matatus, and slang for it is called Matwana culture. So that's another way where we see the Kenyan culture coming in. For like example, let's say if we used to have like shukas for the Swahilis, which had like sayings, now it's all over matatus. And for me, that's what I'm currently doing in the XR space. I'm putting in our culture there so people can put on a headset and be in the environments and see how it is to be in Nairobi. Yeah.
Okay. And in a way, is it also a way to preserve this kind of these graffitis, this aesthetic?
Definitely, yeah, because sadly my grandmother like passed away 2 years ago, and during that her last year we bonded so much, and she actually talked about how so in Kenya we have like 52 tribes. My grandmother is Taveta, and it's like becoming extinct. Even when you see the town, like it just looks like a ghost town right now. And she actually saw how the Germans were in Tanganyika, and they actually took some of her siblings, and all that information was just oral, and it was just going away. And that's when it clicked for me that as an artist, I am supposed to document what's going on around me.
Thank you. So let's go back to Claudix. Do you mind?
I would just like to say one thing.
Sure.
This that you're saying that because it's oral knowledge, it's going away. It reminds me of what Lorna said a moment ago that I don't necessarily agree with. You said that there hasn't been a more exciting moment to be a woman. And I'm like, that we know of.
Yeah, it's true.
That we know of, like, the participation of women in history has been erased systematically, and it's happening again right now. It's happening to homosexuals, it's happening to transsexuals. They are erasing all their contributions from the books and the web pages. So if they are doing this right now in the era of telecommunications, I'm sure there was much better moments for a woman. I'm sure. And there will be much better moments also in the future. But yeah, so I also just wanted to highlight the importance of this type of heritage. this type of heritage, you know? And of course, I perceive that there is a sense of, what's the word? Delusion, actually. It's delusional to think that creating VR work, we are preserving. I think we can think about this in, for example, time lapse of 100 years. But really, I'm stretching it a bit, you know? What's up with MP5, MP6, MP7, MP8? At some point, my APKs, my .exe, my .mp4 with 360 metadata injected is simply, I think, lost data. And I do a big work together with the collective that I'm part of. We do a big work for mediation, but also for conservation and archiving, because we tend to think that these technologies are the future, and baby, they are obsolete as. Like, it makes more sense to be making sculptures on stone. They will last longer, actually. So maybe I can just talk over this. It's in silence, so you can play it. Okay, so this is my first VR film. It's called Dance Permit Denied, and it's about the traditional dance of my family. We are from Ancash, which is like 10 hours away from the capital. And of course, there is no transportation method other than very ruiny mountain paths. And within this, this is the central plaza, the main square of the town. And my family has danced for generations this dance that you saw the costume just earlier, which is called Los Negrazos de Sipsa, the black men from Sipsa. And this is our virgin, this is our local saint. And we dance for her, but only if you're a man. So I was not taught how to dance, though I know how to dance, though I know how to make the costumes and prepare the foods that are necessary, because of the gender roles that were imposed or that were passed forward on. So in this performance in 360, I created my own cintas with the colors of the trans flag. Because we talk about documentation, No, just let it go. I wasn't aware that I was creating such a document when I started filming this, and it was only the view of others and the passage of events that allowed me to notice. For example, that church, that yellow church, it was demolished 3 months after I shot. In here, you can see people wearing masks. So we all know this was a very small celebration because it was the year 2021, and we were not allowed to celebrate, and we still did it. And it was very small. The party usually is huge, no? And this glacier, it's just gonna disappear. It's gonna be away, and I know that because as a child, I have seen it disappearing. I am 28 years old, and that glacier was not like that the first time I met it. Like every year it's been going down, and I just noticed that I created an immersive piece of media that in the future, people is gonna be able to put the headset and look at a lost deity. Okay, so this other work, it's called Non-Focable Tokens, NFTs, and this is a live performance. So what I do here is I mediate artificial intelligence. Oh, that one was very slow. It was very short. So sorry. And also augmented reality. This is sort of my works that is a work in progress right now that is called Mark is Building a Bunker, or Songs for NPCs. And this is critiques of technocracy. So this is a billionaire that wants to be the first woman to make yoga in Mars. And then the other character is like a billionaire that is building an eco-friendly bunker to escape climate crisis. This character is me/us, who don't have another option. Like, we are not going underground, we are not going out of the earth. This is the earth we have, and we are trying to get into the place that this is for the beautiful people, right? This is us right now, like washing people trying to flee, people trying to flee also from our rage for the way that the redistribution of resources have been done. And this is, I call it an anti-futurist concert, because it's very against the narrative of future that I've been told is the one that I have to accept. And so I use my body to animate all these characters and with different voices and different avatars. This is some of my latest work I've been working on this year. That last character was a girl guy. This is a guy girl. The other, these are the transgender. These are the transracial. So this is not white, not black. The next one is not white. And then is my post-human, and then is my pre-human. And this project is called GAN, Generative Adversarial Nuisance. And I talk about, on this side, you can see the artificial ignorance. And on this side, you can see the artisanal intelligence. So because I come from a family of artisanal makers, like we are artisans, we make art that is not considered art. So it's artisany. And this is my knowledge, and I know this is intelligence. And I use these words, artisanal intelligence and artificial ignorance, because it's biased, because it's ignorant. And this is a not premiered VR. It's the new work that I have with a mixer, the collective that I've been mentioning. And that is about how centennials, we get affected by the digitality of the interfaces that we have towards everything, towards each other, towards everything, and how this reconstructs our perception of reality. So through this mysterious drink, you have this like a spiritual awakening, but also it is kind of like a digital nightmare, because it's also my personal experience that, you know, things get very absurd and things get very scary once you start questioning the core of what exists and how exists what exists. And of course, if you think about the scale of time, then it gets much crazier. But yeah, so those are the works that I wanted to share with you.
Thanks a lot, Claudix. I had one last question for you now. As yesterday during the performance you premiered here, you used the word, a very interesting word, xeno-reality. Xeno meaning both stranger and host in ancient Greek. For people who weren't there yesterday, can you please explain what you mean by xeno-reality? What is it?
Yeah, so that performance is a work in progress. It was developed with Harry, because I wanted to show it here, because I think the New Images Festival should be the place to show this this xeno reality, or these xeno images, or this xeno performativity. So I kind of rushed, and again, it's not a finished performance. But I was part of a research group in Matadero Media Lab 3 years ago, which is in Madrid. And the study group is called Xenovisual Studies. Back then it was called Xenoimages dataset. And we were inspired by xenofeminism, that is a philosophy and multidisciplinary approach developed by a collective called Laboria Cubonics. And so xenofeminism has its own approach to gender abolitionism, and of course using technology as a way to empower a feminism that is intersectional. I don't agree with that. I don't think technology itself is empowering, and I don't think women are empowered through technology either. I think that is a white feminist fallacy. However, I understand that there are steps that we have to take towards the liberation of everyone. And if this is one of those steps for a huge group of people, I acknowledge it. So for me, taking this xeno out of the context where I got it first in my vocabulary and turning it into xeno, the post-anthropoceno, like I really think we are entering an era that impacts not only humans, but the whole surroundings of the Earth, because we are probably talking about colonizing the moon or colonizing Mars or trying to. So it's already, the narrative got bigger than just the Earth, and it got bigger than just humans and these other living things that we actually don't respect, right? These other things that exist in the planet. plus now the AI that we believe is a form of condensation of our knowledge, though we know this is not absolute true, it's a group of knowledges. And I actually don't want to be part of it. So what I do is I use the technology to say, I really don't like this. I really don't like this. So Seno for me is a way to put in words what I don't like.
Yeah.
You know, what I think, like there's one part of the performance where I say, if you can remember one thing, let it be this. If humans don't create Seno regulations soon, humans will forget the difference between an image and a Seno image, a text and a Seno text, a sound and a Seno sound, music from the Seno music. The whole music that I presented yesterday was made by artificial intelligence. And I didn't stop receiving comments about how good the music was, and I was like, yeah, because it's told from good musicians. So it's good to have words to name it, I think.
Thank you so much, Claudix. We only have 7 minutes left, so I definitely want to. I'd like you, Lorna, to talk to us about your studio's first VR film, Keepers of the Forest: The Batwa Legacy. It's set to premiere this May. Yes, it's an immersive lesson on climate change and conservation rooted in indigenous vernacular knowledge. We'll have a look on it. Why did you choose to make a VR film instead of a traditional documentary? And what does it change in these people's representation of themselves, and maybe also in the young generation? The fact that they can see themselves in such a creation, what does it change in their mind, in their identity maybe, in their pride, and so on?
Ooh, very good questions. I'll start, I think, with the last point, and then I'll talk about why the film was created and urgent, needed to be. That story had to be told now. When was the last time you visited a museum? Anyone in the room?
Last week.
Last week? Okay. So it goes back to the question we were trying to unpack earlier, was where was African heritage? Mm-hmm. And to be honest, the West has done a fantastical job in museums and buildings that hold collections. So a couple of years ago, we were really trying to understand where is African heritage, and you couldn't find it in the Uganda Museum. You just couldn't find it. And we later then, in trying to figure out that it's largely intangible, right? It's buried in the places that we live, in the food that we eat. You cannot hold it, but you can feel it, you can taste it, you can smell it, you can wear it, you can listen to it. That intangibility was very hard to capture in objects or in artifact formats. Then these technologies, as I said earlier, why I said immersive tech or virtual augmented reality and even generating AI are the most Afrocentric tech because they are very similar in the way in which they relayed information, that you are invited to experience. Right? It was experiential, that you performed, you were invited into this dance. And these technologies have given us a platform to be able to storytell in the formats in which our stories were relayed, whether it was through dance, in our food, it was buried in those elements. And yeah, so that there is that particular piece. So in this particular, I think here you would see the Batwa people. The Batwa are the endangered group that are living in the Virunga ranges. So if you've had the opportunity to visit the beautiful Rwenzori impenetrable forest and the Mgahinga, this is the only place in the world where you find the mountain gorillas. Like there's no other place in the whole world. And this particular group lived in harmony with the gorillas for centuries. And they have a very fascinating way in which they looked at the forest. It was very symbiotic. It's like, I am because you are. The same Ubuntu philosophy that we extend to humanity, they extended with animal, like with fauna and flora. They never destroyed anything. So this what you're seeing here are fractals, which are patterns you'll find everywhere, and this is called crown shyness. And you find this expressed, in kind of science. But they had a very interesting way to point at how the trees respected each other. So crown shyness is each tree we are together, but like let's respect each other, and they have those philosophies in their elements. And those are pieces of, that's what we wanted to really capture. For this particular one, we wanted to tell you that a forest was never a forest. For us, you may be walking through a forest. To them, it was a museum. In the forest was where they buried their people. Then their forest was how they communicated with pretty much everything. So the forest was then a museum. But when you walk into a forest, you don't see a museum, you see trees. For them, they saw hidden stories, and it was that intangible that you will never find, and these technologies have allowed us to document that in those formats. It's also the sacredness of those stories, that while other people it's just a forest, to them it's a collective. I mean, it's an encyclopedia of knowledge. They knew what plant does that. They knew what each thing is communicating to them. So for them, that was a library. To us, it's just trees. But it's also respecting the, going back to how should all knowledge be shared, Right now, we are living at interesting times where, the internet, which almost what AI is learning on, holds about 5% of the world's information. The other 95% is not captured in the cloud that we think it is, and it's living in all of us. We are all libraries, and it's where you hear a lot of in Africa. If an elder dies, a library dies with them. So what for him, he is the museum, And you would walk through a forest, or you could walk with a moving museum who could act. In this particular piece, he's telling you what each plant does, and what it. And the healing pieces, So this is a hospital for them, And I think the beauty, why this story became very important for us to tell now, and really urgently, is in this way as well, was again, we all know the climate change crisis is happening, but the way it has been it's been left to the political landscape, the business group, to discuss, but everybody else doesn't necessarily feel that, how does it affect us? Are we involved? But for them, because they're again a endangered group, they have the repercussions of this global thing is affecting them. But then they have very interesting ideologies of conservation that you will not find on global discourse. People are talking about carbon credits, but they have philosophies that we really want to invite and include in discussion. But also, lastly, why this story had to be told very urgently is, as you know, Africa is the youngest continent, and over the next couple of years, over 70% of the world will be young and African. That's why I say I'm a reckless optimist for what the future is. The beautiful ones are here. But as Martin said, there is such a disconnect. In Uganda, only 1.2% of the population is above 60 years old. 1.2% of the population. 70% is below 35. So what that means is that when a library dies, when an elder dies, a library is gone. So that intangible heritage that we hadn't captured in the traditional formats in which, books and artifacts may go with them. And that is a fear that we really do not want to see come to pass. And lastly, I think the beauty about what makes humanity so exciting and so beautiful and it has been able to outlive other species is that we compound on knowledge. We build on the knowledge of those who came before us. Knowledge is not, kind of like the very few inventions, but everything is building and compounding on a previous set of knowledge. And Africa has a kind of a library, an encyclopedia to include. So just in conclusion, in Africa, our museums are everywhere, and we are their keepers. And therefore, this film, in its immersive way, because that's how we previously told stories or relayed information, was immersive, experiential, and these technologies are very similar to our natural formats of storytelling.
Wow. What a conclusion. So we run out of time, but if you have questions, we can stay here for maybe 5 more minutes. Are there questions in the audience? Okay, would you like to add something?
I was just thinking about what you said, that it is so similar, the immersiveness that we are trying to recreate than the one we had before. And that is why I think indigenous perspectives are so enriched for understanding the technology that is just now catching up, you know, because maybe there is no need to do all of this mineral extraction that relies on child abuse, you know, and also other types of abuse, in order to recreate something that we already had and we know that it works. So I really, you made me remember this phrase of virtual reality is gonna get so good, so realistic, that they are gonna invent theater.
Crazy.
For me, as a former theater person, of course, that joke is like, so good. But that aside, I think, you know, for example, I was seeing a meme earlier that was like, I don't think we noticed that we already peaked as a species. And that hurts because, of course, I want to think of that the beautiful ones are yet to born. And the meme was very clear, like saying, this was the bread before. It had flour, water, salt. Beautiful bread, masa madre. And this is the bread now, very industrial breads. Yeah. And so on, you know, a lot of examples we can think about this. It really makes me think, you know, how the fear of missing out because other people are doing something and we think that because their imaginary numbers are going up, we also have to do that. I would like to challenge that for myself, and it's very hard. That is why I said before that I was forced into technology. Like, being informed about what technology is doing is the only way that I can have a respected enough voice to say something that could actually be meaningful. And not even, you know, but I really think that there is a lot of these new Afrofuturism, indigenous futurisms, that it's not only challenging the narrative that is already dominant, it's also just so good for the living things, you know, that it should be embraced, not extracted. It should be embraced and respected, and give spaces, give a space to the voices that are the libraries of these knowledges. So I'm also very happy to have been here with you.
Thank you so much, Martin. Would you like to add something?
Yes. For me, when it comes to the XR space, I think we have a chance to try. In today's society, I think we have the fear of failure, and that shouldn't be it. We should actually encourage it and promote more, what's it called? The word you said, like teaching others. Apprenticeship. Yeah, this space gives us that chance to teach each other. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, your insights, your learnings, and for offering us a little piece of your inner worlds. It's been fascinating. Thank you so much. Thanks again to the Forum des Images for the invitation. And see you soon, very, very soon, in the real world or in the virtual world, anywhere. Everywhere. Thank you so much.